So, yeah,
So,
who wants to start?
When we had talked before, there are a number of very talented Israeli actors who have been brought into this project. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, Gideon fortunately had worked, obviously a lot in Israel, and we knew when we were going to go and shoot there that we needed to tap into that whole talent pool. And what you find out when you go there is just how deep that bench really is. It's amazing how many talented actors they have there. They have a very active theater industry there. They have a very active television industry, very active movie and feature film industry, and so the talent bench was huge, and we tried to cast as many roles as we could around our central leads. In some ways, a very big co-lead of the show is Ori Pfeffer, who's Israeli, so yeah, we tapped into some really extraordinary actors.
I'm sorry. Can you give us a synopsis of the show?
Well, the show is a 10-part series, event series, centered around a murder mystery in the old city of Jerusalem, specifically around the idea of an archaeological, or a young archaeologist, and the case that Peter Connelly, who's an agent with the FBI, who's stationed in Jerusalem, gets onto this case, and through the mystery of trying to solve this murder, he uncovers a very deep and ancient kind of conspiracy. And so as he uncovers the truth about the murder, he begins to uncover the truth of this ancient conspiracy that seems to be coming to life at this particular time.
There are so many factual wells you could have gone to for this particular project. How did you pick and choose what made the most sense with the story and kind of what might have been interesting but you couldn't actually fit in?
Well, it's a very big landscape, but once we've stumbled upon what the conspiracy was, it dictated what we were going to research. And so without giving that away, it did narrow the focus once we realized that, this conspiracy is about doing this. And so all of the pieces from all the varying storylines that all converge all have to do with fulfilling that sort of conspiracy.
Can you talk a little bit about the casting of the principal roles? It seems like you have a very eclectic actor base here.
Yeah, I mean, this in the cast just it came together really nicely. With Jason Isaacs, Gideon and I had actually talked about him. We actually met him at an event when we were just writing the pilot. And so it was just kind of a twinkle in our eye. We didn't even know if anybody was going to buy this pilot, but because we wrote the pilot first. But when we met him, we decided that we were really kind of interested in him. He unfortunately already was on a show, and so we kind of gave up on the idea. But by the time we started casting, he was then available, and we were able to go back to him. So that piece of casting was actually fell into place really nicely. We didn't have to search. We didn't have to, flirt with lots of different people and all that. We kind of ended up with the guy that we wanted from the very beginning. As for Anne Heche, I'm trying to think of how she actually came into the thing. Her name came up on a short list, and we sent her the script, and Gideon and I went out to lunch with her, and the next thing you know, we were all fully committed. And she offers a very different kind of flavor to Jason, who has a certain amount of an intensity, and Anne has an ability to be very light, and we thought that combination was going to be really, really great. And then Lauren Ambrose was really a fabulous again, we were going to cast kind of an unknown in that role, but then her name came up, and we all kind of fell in love with that idea. She has a very specific kind of tone to her that's immediately sympathetic, and we wanted that character to be extremely sympathetic very quickly. And so, yeah, I know, and all the other casting, just, again, the casting process is always it's putting together a dinner party in a way, and this one really came together actually really beautifully.
Can you talk about how the production of a limited run series is different from a 22 to 25 episode season?
Well, without getting sort of too technical about the business end of it, but the truth is, it is a very different animal in that you write the episodes beforehand, and as opposed to the assembly line quality that you do when you're in production. And one of the drawbacks is that you don't have that as much of a staff while you're you have the staff up front when you're writing, but when you're in production you don't have a lot of the usual people that are kind of doing the day-to-day stuff. So it's different in that respect. This particular one, because it is a serialized show, and because we are shooting in different parts of the world, we're block shooting. So we're shooting a piece here and a piece there and a piece here, and multiple episodes worth of stuff will be shot on any given day, and then you piece it together. So it's in essence, it's sort of more like doing a big giant movie than it is doing a television series. On television series, you have a set director that for each episode, and when you're done with that episode, the next one starts, and that assembly line happens. This one was really more boarded as a big giant movie, and Gideon is directing a tremendous amount of it, as you may know. He'll end up directing close to 3/4 of the entire project.
Well, visually it's going to be really interesting because you have 3 different countries you are actually filming in. How does that work cohesively into your storyline structure?
Well, you'd be surprised how elegantly it does. Scenes that were shot months ago that then butt up against scenes that were shot 2 weeks ago in a different, halfway around the world, are cutting together really beautifully. It's the magic of film. I mean, clearly we've had to match Jerusalem in Croatia, and remarkably, it actually worked very well. There's a slightly different color to the quality of light, but that's what post-production is for, and so we get a lot of help in post-production. And there's a little bit of difference in like the color of the stone. Jerusalem has this Jerusalem stone, which is all uniform color. And the stone was a little different, but again, we were able to sort of do our magic. And it is amazing how you can match things. We're shooting in New Mexico. We have a storyline set in the American Southwest, so for that it's perfect, obviously, for that. But it also doubles for some parts of Israel as well, and I think it doubles really, really beautifully. Again, everything is just a little tweak here and a little tweak there. It's amazing what you can do with signage, with signage and cars and license plates and all the details sort of fool the brain into thinking that and especially when scenes are continuous, like somebody walks out of one building and into and onto the street. It's a continuous thing for the audience, but those things might have been shot months apart in different parts of the world.
What was kind of the predominant color you were looking for as your landscape?
Well, because we have sort of at the beginning of the show, at least for the first several episodes, we have 3 separate storylines that sort of converge. Each one had its own look. One of them starts in the snowy Norway, and it has a kind of snowy, cold, almost greenish quality to it. Jerusalem is, this show takes place in kind of the heat of the summer, or early fall probably, I guess is when we would say it was, because it's got that high Jerusalem light that is very harsh and bright and golden. and dusty, and you're supposed to feel the heat of things, so people, are sweating a little bit, and it feels a little warmer climate. And then the scenes in the Southwest that mainly take place in this very sterile facility have a kind of steely, cold, kind of bluish gray quality to them that ends up feeling very institutional and making you feel kind of nervous because of the coldness of it. So those, and we also shot things in very different ways. We used different lenses and different ways of, some stuff was handheld, and the Jerusalem stuff is more handheld. The stuff in the facility is all locked down on a tripod or a dolly, and so it gives a very different feel. And in general, the show has a kind of thriller feel to it. There's a paranoid sense that who you think you can trust may not be trustworthy, and what's behind that corner might be something dangerous. So the show uses a lot of those kind of tropes to help us tell the story.
Well, it certainly is a different kind of show than what USA Network is known for. What has your working relationship with them been like, and what has kind of surprised you the most about that working relationship?
Well, listen, they were very open to this. They bought this show. It was not developed by them. It was, as I said, the show was written on spec by Gideon and me. And they bought it because they wanted to have something very different. And I think that, by doing it as an event series, they know that, their audience has to grow and change along with everybody else who's watching these very highly addictive kind of serialized storytelling. And so they were really willing and excited to go with this thing that looked and felt like not the same stuff that they do. And I think audiences right now are extremely sophisticated. They're able to watch shows where it challenges them that they don't always know exactly what's happening at the moment, that they'll be paid off and rewarded for their sticking to it. They now will watch shows with subtitled scenes, and this show has Hebrew in it, and so there are scenes that you need to be able to sort of pay attention and read the subtitles. And I think audiences are much more sophisticated than people give them credit for, and all credit to USA for taking the chances with something that I think is going to be a more challenging kind of show to watch.
Clearly Gideon is entrenched in dramas from this region, but were you looking for a project from this region? Did you want to tell a story from this region? We have Homeland and we have some other things that were greenlit.
I wasn't looking. It wasn't so much about the region. I'd always been fascinated by Israel. The show has some components of religion in it, and that were interesting. I was a religious studies major in college, and so I think it tapped into that interest. And to be really honest, Gideon caught me at a time when he came and pitched me this idea. When I was kind of open to working with I'd never worked with a partner before. I'd always done things on my own. And, that's a hard thing to do, do stuff on your own, And I thought, why don't I try something where, I'm actually sharing the burden with somebody else. And because it was a speculative project, it wasn't, there was nobody expecting us to turn in a draft next week. It was sort of just fun, and it became something that I just looked forward to every time we got together, and we, working on the script together, it was just so much fun. So I wasn't really looking to do this kind of thing, but I'm known for certain kinds of storytelling, but the truth is I had years and years and years of a career before Heroes, and years before Crossing Jordan, and years before even Chicago Hope, and I wrote thrillers a lot when I was, I wrote TV movies that were thrillers and spec scripts that were thrillers, and I grew up with a love for that the 70s classic 70s paranoid thriller, that kind where a little guy against a big story that he's just this big and the story is this big, and I just love that kind of stuff, and we sort of hit it off. I also love the idea of research, and I always find it really fascinating to do it. And my last couple projects had not been very research oriented; they've been more imagination oriented, and so for all those reasons, it kind of, I didn't really think about it much. We got together and we were having fun, and the next thing you know, we sold it, and the next thing you know, we were making it. So
it's fascinating. You're a religious studies major, and I'm sure there's a lot of research involved in that. So naturally, you're prone to want to do research. Yeah,
and this particular subject matter tapped into that. I hadn't used that skill set or that knowledge for a long time, and so it was kind of fun to go back and look at the world through that lens.
They're pulling him.
That's right. Yeah, one more question.
I think she needs her
Let's do one
question.
more